Welcome to the 2021 Prospectors and Developers Convention. My name is Peter Akerley. I'm President and CEO of Erdene Resource Development, and today I'll speak to you about the development of the high-grade Khundii Gold District in southwestern Mongolia, unlocking treasures and sharing benefits. I will be making forward-looking statements during today's presentation. So let me begin with our investment highlights. We're focused on an unexplored portion of one of the world's great gold belts. We're first movers with multiple discoveries and district-scale potential. We're developing a simple, high-grade, high-return open-pit gold mine while continuing to explore with exceptional upside at the new Dark Horse gold discovery. We have a strong shareholder base and financial position, a long history in country, which resulted in a strong social license to operate, and we have a very experienced management team. So let me get into the details. Our vision is to unlock the value of this prolific gold belt, which has increasingly demonstrated the potential for multi-million ounce gold deposits. Our plan for unlocking that potential is to double resources to over 2 million ounces of high-grade near-surface gold, while simultaneously advancing the Bayan Khundii Gold Project to a mid-2021 construction start, leading to more than 75,000 ounces of annual gold production. Leveraging the robust economics of Bayan Khundii, we will seek to grow organically, leading to the creation of a significant precious metals producer. Now let's look more closely at Mongolia. This is truly a mining-focused economy. As you can see on the right-hand side here, the contribution to Mongolia's economy, 70% of foreign direct investment, 88% of export earnings, 71% of industrial output, a very significant contribution to Mongolia's economy. It's also located in a very prolific gold production region. It's centered between the world's two largest gold producing countries, Russia and China, and this greater region accounts for 24% of world gold production. Mongolia is an emerging mining region with over 40,000 mining employees. The large Oyu Tolgoi mine has 97% of its staff Mongolian, 15,000 people in total, and the country remains largely unexplored, with 70% of the landmass not yet seeing exploration. There's a competitive regulatory regime with a 5% gold royalty rate and 25% corporate income tax. You can secure stabilization certificates that provide certainty of current tax rates for up to 7 years. There's a double taxation treaty with Canada and 20 other nations. Canada and Mongolia have a Foreign Investment Promotion and Protection Act in place called FIPA. And this is a growing democracy located between China and Russia. There's only 3 million people in what is the world's 18th largest country. Its GDP is growing quickly at 5.1% in 2019. And it has a very young population with a high literacy rate at about 98%. This is the impact that the mining industry has had on Mongolia. You can see on the map on the right, multiple mines in the southern part of the country, highways and rail and airports. All of this has been constructed over the last 10 to 15 years to support the mining industry and the hunger coming from China for raw materials. You'll continue to see that growth of infrastructure as we see this country grow. On the left-hand side, you can see some of the images of that growth. The Oyu Tolgoi project, a multi-billion-dollar project, the biggest project in Rio Tinto's pipeline. You can see multiple images of rail and new airports and coal mines, massive truck transportation routes in the southern part of the country. So a very active area, and this will only continue to increase over time. You can also see where our projects are located in southwestern Mongolia, about 200 kilometers northwest of the Sake border crossing. And this is significant because that border crossing now has multiple rail and blacktop highways accessing coal mines in the district, which didn't exist 10 years ago. We truly were infrastructurally challenged and remote when I first went out into this area 20 years ago. But today that has changed. We're now 200 kilometers from major mining centers. Our foundation for growth is really centered around the Bayan Khundii Gold Project. We see this as a base to generate significant cash flow so that we can use that cash flow to continue to generate new discoveries and grow and expand this resource in this very exciting new district. You can see here on this page how we've moved forward very rapidly from discovery in 2016 through the various stages of de-risking this project to the point where we will be shovel ready in 2021 and looking to construct that initial mine as we move into 2022 for first gold. What really drives the economics at Bayan Khundii is the grade. This is a very unique area in that we've not previously seen exploration, so you still have these high-grade deposits available at surface. In our case, we have an average head grade of 3.7 grams per ton, and as you can see here, that would be in the top decile of pre-production open pit deposits globally. This is how the initial pit looks in long section at the bottom of the page. This pit was designed based on a $1,350 gold price, so significant potential for expansion looking at gold prices today. We currently have 409,000 ounces of reserves in that economic pit in the proven and probable category, as mentioned, at 3.7 grams per ton. But in addition to that, as you can see on the right-hand side here, our total resources are in the range of 620,000 ounces. So much of the material that sits around the confines of the current economic pit is also in that 3 gram plus range. And we believe through some work we're now doing with Tetra Tech that we can expand that economic pit and enlarge the reserves for an increase in the mine life. The ore at Bayan Khundii is quite simple. It's largely oxide. It's amenable to simple conventional processing. We're crushing and grinding this material through a SAG and ball mill down to 80% passing 60 micron, running that through the CIP plant for up to 93% recovery. We are in a arid climate. We are very focused on the conservation of water, and therefore we are employing a dry stack tails process, and those dry tails will be stored in an integrated waste facility, which you can see on the right-hand side. We're also very excited to be the first company in Mongolia moving forward with a hybrid power solution, which will be a combination of solar and diesel power, which you can see on the bottom of the page. So some of the highlights that I haven't touched on yet include the average production. We will be producing approximately 65,000 ounces of gold per year. However, in year 2, we're exceeding 75,000 ounces. And looking at the opportunities, which I'll share with you in a moment, we don't think we'll be looking back from 75,000 ounces per year. There's plenty of opportunities to bring in grade from other prospects and or volume to increase that production. But at this point, based on our feasibility study, it averages 65,000 ounces per year. We have designed a plant that can accommodate cost-effective increased capacity. We believe we could push this up north of 80,000 ounces as we move forward. We have low all-in sustaining costs at $733 an ounce and low capex to go along that at $59 million, which I'll come back to in a moment. This is a relatively shallow open pit. Mineralization starts at surface in the southern end of the pit and extends down to 144 meters depth. Simple mineralogy, as I mentioned, with good recoveries at 93%. It'll take us about 1.5 years to get this mine up and running, and then a 6-year production period based on the feasibility study. Again, we already have resources at another project to the north, which I'll share with you in a moment, and we have great exploration opportunities and growth opportunities around the current pit. So we see this as a 10-year plus operation once we're up and running. The cash flows that will be generated from this operation are quite significant. This is a relatively small plant at 1,800 tons per day, but given the high grades, we're able to generate the ounces we talked about earlier. But we're going to be producing at a range of gold prices of $1,600 to $1,800 an ounce. We will be producing $40 to $50 million in after-tax net free cash flow. So significant cash flow for a company that today has a market capitalization of 80 million US. So we'll be generating our market cap in the first 2 years of production, to put it in perspective. In terms of leverage to gold price, we had a base case of $1,400 in the feasibility study. And you can see here the sensitivity to gold price, where that effectively doubles as you move up close to $1,800, and a very respectable IRR at $1,400 gold and less than a 2-year payback. But you can see here that with a gold price in that $1,700 to $1,800 range, we're going to be in that 60 to 80% IRR range. As mentioned earlier, a $59 million capital, including a 10% contingency. So let's look a little bit more closely at our schedule as we see it today. We're currently very focused on moving through the final approvals and permits required to move to construction. We expect that work to be wrapping up as we move into late Q2, early Q3. We have our construction readiness and detailed engineering work going on, both from international consultants and also in Mongolia, where we're using multiple engineering consulting firms to expertise the international work. And on top of all of that, we signed a mandate letter with Export Development Canada back in October to be the primary lender to the project. Up to $55 million is being evaluated by Export Development Canada. They have just recently had their technical and E&S consultants on site and completed that evaluation. So we expect to move through their due diligence as we move into Q3. And by the time we're into mid to late Q2, actually have that credit decision from Export Development Canada, which will form the foundation for our project finance and the bulk of the $59 million capex that's required. Once we've moved through those three key areas of completing the detailed engineering, having the permits in hand, and having the financing resolved, then we will make a construction decision. And that will immediately lead to early earthworks, camp establishment, and civil works. We expect the process plant construction and the non-process infrastructure to continue from late 2021 into mid-2022, and expect to see the state commission approvals and first ore processed as we moved into late 2022 for first gold production towards year-end next year. So let me now move on to the exploration upside. This is truly a very exciting district, and we've employed a disciplined, methodical exploration approach to this area. We've brought in some of the world's experts in the images you can see in front of you. We have Dr. Armel Kloppenberg on the left, who's helped us understand the structural setting. On the far right, you have Dr. Jeffrey Hedenquist with our Vice President of Exploration, Mike McDonald. And in the center is what we're after here, and that's one of the intersections we had in the Khundii deposit, which ran 2,200 grams over a meter. So a very exciting regional opportunity with very high-grade deposits remaining at surface, because we have not yet seen regional exploration in this area. So let me get into this exploration upside in some detail. We're located in the heart of the eastern part of the Central Asian orogenic belt. And as you can see in this image, the belt hosts some of the true giants of our industry. On the far left is the Morantau deposit, 140 million ounces of gold. And on the far right is the more recently discovered Oyu Tolgoi project, which has 62 million ounces of gold. And as you can see here, a whole host of other deposits that have 5 to 20 million ounces of gold. We're focused on what we know as the Erdene terrain, which is a geologic terrain in southwestern Mongolia. And for various reasons, it remained unexplored until we arrived here in the 2009-2010 period, when we began to employ a systematic regional exploration approach. And the first thing we did was to look at the geologic framework here, and it's late Paleozoic island arcs in southwestern Mongolia that are the focus, particularly late Carboniferous mineralization, which hosts the major copper gold deposits throughout the belt as we move west, and a little bit older in the Devonian age as we look at Oyu Tolgoi. But there has been limited exploration here, so we had this clean palette with which to work. And we set out to explore the entire 400-kilometer trend of the Erdene terrain, and we completed geochemical sampling and prospecting over 4 million hectares. We used satellite imagery to key in on Paleozoic units that were demonstrating clay alteration. We use that information to really sort of focus in using boot and hammer prospecting, and we acquired almost 500,000 hectares of ground in that 2009-2010 period and began to systematically explore that area. We generated the largest proprietary geologic database in southwestern Mongolia. We've discovered 3 deposits to 43101 level. We have the Khundii Gold Project, we have the Altenar Gold Polymetallic Deposit, and the Zun Mod Molybdenum Copper Deposit. And this is really on the backs of quite limited exploration. When you look at other districts that would have this kind of fertility or prospectivity, they would have received hundreds of millions or billions of dollars of exploration, and here we are with tens of millions at the most injected into a very exciting new terrain. So plenty of upside here. We have an additional 20 high priority, high potential exploration targets we've identified throughout the terrain that largely sit on government held ground that periodically opens up for tender. And the other thing I'd point out is we've been very disciplined in our use of investors' dollars. We are consistently in the lower third of our peer group's average SG&A expenditures. Now let me key in specifically on what we call the Khundii Gold District. You can see on the map in front of you 5 licenses, and these are our land holdings. They total about 17,000 hectares, and they are all owned 100% by the company. 3 of these are mining licenses, which are outlined in blue, and 2 outlined in orange are exploration licenses. The difference there is that a mining license has a period of tenure of up to 70 years, and an exploration license 12. So you're under some pressure to convert those. That mining license conversion is a fairly detailed process. You have to establish a resource and go through a Mongolian feasibility study in order to have their mineral council evaluate whether or not it should be converted. So all of that work has gone into the Khundii license, the Altenar license, and the Zun Mod license to make that conversion. So long tenure on those mining licenses. Let me speak to the priority properties here. So Khundii, as we've talked about already, is the cornerstone, the foundation for exploring this area in the future, that cash flowing opportunity to continue to expand resources. North of that, about 3.5 kilometers, we've just announced in the last couple of months a very significant early stage discovery that is showing very good indications of scale and some very high grades near surface. That's the next priority. And then as we move north to Altenar, 16 kilometers north, we have already established resources in this deposit area, but there's a tremendous opportunity for growth here. So we will also be getting to that opportunity as we move forward in 2021. The drill results you see on the left-hand side of this page are all from drilling that took place in the last 12 months. And each of these 3 intersections are examples of step-outs from existing resources in areas that were considered low-grade or outside of the resource blocks. In the case of Dark Horse, a brand new discovery. But if you look at those, at Altenar, we have 17 grams per ton over 23 meters. At Dark Horse, 12 grams per ton over 22 meters. And at Khundii, a very high-grade 25 grams per ton over 15 meters. And then if you look at the depth of these intersections, these are close to surface to a maximum depth of 70 meters. These are high-grade, shallow deposits that still exist because of the lack of exploration and mining in this area. And it really is, I believe, the top peel on the onion that we're looking at here. And there's just so much potential that we have in front of us in these deposits and in this area. If you'll note on this page, you'll see an oval-shaped area on the southern part of the Khundii license, which overlaps with our Ulan license. We recently acquired a 100% interest in Ulan, increasing from 50% up to 100%, because we see this as part of this geologic setting with significant alteration over this entire area. And let me now share with you some more details on this area, which we believe to be an intrusion-related alteration system at depth, perhaps a porphyry system, overprinted on by low sulfidation epithermal. And you can see at the bottom of this north-south feature on this page, the Khundii deposit, which hosts over 600,000 ounces of 3 grams plus. We see this entire area as prospective for both gold and copper, but we had keyed in on the cluster of yellow prospects you see in the northeast part of this image. That's what we considered the Altenaro Dark Horse area. We've been doing some work there over the last couple of years. We've had some terrific intersections and grab samples, not unusual to see ounce plus intersections over a meter, but we hadn't really seen that broad halo of low grade that we see associated with Bayan Khundii that provides us with that bulk mining opportunity. Late last year, we had done some drilling along these northeast structures that you see in red, and we had intersected over an ounce of gold, but it was narrow. It was a couple of meters of gold mineralization, but there was some low-grade gold associated with that in a much wider halo. But interestingly, there was a signature associated with it, an elemental signature of arsenic, antimony, and molybdenum that we didn't necessarily see at Bayan Khundii. But we did start to see that repeated relationship with it in some of those holes that we drilled at the Alton Arrow Dark Horse area in the eastern portion. So we went back into our database and looked at some of the previous drilling that we had done. And there had been one hole that had tested a chargeability anomaly along that north-south structure that you see in front of us. And that hole had a very intense, wide alteration zone that contained that same elemental association of arsenic, antimony, and molybdenum. So we went back in there late last year and we drilled hole 57 below that indicator element anomaly, and we hit a significant zone of QSP alteration over greater than 100 meters. We saw some good disseminated sulfide mineralization associated with that pyrite, and felt that we're into a strong hydrothermal system. So we added a couple more holes along that trend, including AAD 58 south of 57, and also AAD 61, which would be about 700 meters north of 58. So quite a significant strike length we were looking at. All three of those holes intersected similar packages of very intense QSP alteration, good epithermal stockwork breccias, epithermal veining, chalcedonic quartz. Those samples went into the lab, and just about Christmas of last year we began to get results. AED 58 at 10 meters below surface hit 45 meters of 6 grams per ton. The other two holes hit very broad zones, 80 to 130 meters of half a gram to 0.8 grams per ton gold. So a very significant new discovery, demonstrated both the high-grade nature of this area, but also this very broad, bulk tonnage opportunity for gold mineralization at Dark Horse. To give you a bit of a more insight into that, this is the distance between Bayan Khundii and Dark Horse, 3.5 kilometers. And that trend that we've now identified, which you can see here in this plan map, is what we believe to be an extensional opening along a north-south dilation structure. Very little exploration has taken place along this. We've had a couple of shallow holes, which you can somewhat see here at surface. They had intersected some intense quartz, hematite, breccia, and stockwork near surface. Very low values of gold, but we do believe that's in the upper levels of the system. And in fact, we believe the entire Dark Horse discovery sits in the upper levels of a low sulfidation system, given the vein types and and that elemental association that I talked about earlier. So we feel like we're in that upper carapace or upper near surface portion of that low sulfidation system, below which you typically get the higher grade, bonanza grade mineralization. So that will be a focus of our exploration as we move into full testing of the Dark Horse prospect. On this page, you can see a section through AAD 58. As mentioned, 45 meters of 6 grams of gold, including 8 meters of 27 grams. You can see some of those textures on the right, and you can also see how that gold mineralization runs in the heart of that portion of the mineralized zone. 36 to 50 meters had 14 meters of 18 grams per gold. Good epithermal veining and brecciation, also some enrichment along structures where you see intense iron oxide weathering along that fault. But worth mentioning also that not only do you have this 45 meters of 6 grams of gold, You can see here you have this very broad zone of hydrothermal QSP alteration that extends throughout the entire hole. And similarly, you can see that with the hole at AAD 61, where we intersected 130 meters of half a gram of gold. You can see also here that there are multiple intersections of over a gram. Most importantly, this near surface zone of 26 meters of 1.1 grams. But I would note that there was no sample in this interval of over 3 grams per ton. So this is a very regularly or consistently mineralized section, which bodes well when you start to look at this as a bulk tonnage opportunity. So back to the plan map, just to give you an overview of our approach to how to tackle this dark horse discovery. We have just completed 9 holes, approximately 2,000 meters of drilling. These are indicated by the blue stars you can see on the map. And our approach here has been to step back and look at the dark horse discovery overall. Do we have extensions over significant strike lengths to the north or south? Do we have mineralization along these intersecting northeast structures? Do we have parallel north-south structures? And that's what we'll learn as we see the results for these initial 9 holes. Those results should be in our hands by the time we're into late March, and those will help define the much more fulsome project that we intend to commence here as we move into late March. And that's anticipated to be a minimum of 7,000 meters, and we expect to see results coming out of that as we move through March throughout Q2, and likely to see this continue as we move into Q3, given the importance of this discovery. So let me shift gears now 16 kilometers north to the Altan Nar project. Altan Nar was the first discovery in the area, a very significant carbonate base metal intermediate sulfidation deposit. You can see some examples of the type of deposit we're dealing with on the left-hand side. Porgera at over 25 million ounces, Kellyan 5.7. Most recently, perhaps viewers would be familiar with Fruta del Norte, the Lundin project in Ecuador at 6.7 million ounces. These are often vertically and laterally extensive deposits, typically with significant gold and silver, lead, zinc credits. In the case of Altan Nar, we have established 500,000 ounces of gold, about 3.2 million ounces of silver, and 320 million pounds of combined lead and zinc. So a significant mineral inventory already exists at Altan Nar, but it's truly early stages here. You can see in the map on the right-hand side that 5.6 kilometer strike length. You can see the outlines of some of the proposed pits that we have that host the majority of the mineralization I just mentioned. But you can also see a whole host of other prospects that are unexplored throughout this area. The focus has predominantly been on Bayan Khundii. We do expect to begin to ramp up exploration at Altan Nar this year to get a better handle on exactly what the potential is here. But I do believe we're looking at something that will be well north of 1 million ounces of gold, and north of 2 million ounces when you begin to look at gold equivalent for this prospect. It is a different style of mineralization relative to Bayan Khundii. When we look at the potential synergies between this project and Bayan Khundii, we have established a significant portion of the resource, approximately 200,000 ounces, that would be amenable to the Bayan Khundii plant. So we have that optionality in the latter years of Bayan Khundii. Should we wish to bring this ore in, we can do that. But more likely, with our future exploration and understanding the metallurgy of this better, we expect that this will be a much larger standalone second development for us, and that this will probably be a flotation concentrate. We've done some early work on that, creating a gold-laden lead concentrate, which captures a large portion of the silver. That would be sold into the Chinese refiners, where we can capture more metal value in total than we would by sending our ore into the CIP plant, or selective ore into the CIP plant. So lots of work to do at Altan Nar, but a tremendous second project ready to add value alongside what we have at Dark Horse and a whole host of other prospects. Truly a very exciting region with our plate already full of pipeline opportunities. This is a close-up of the most advanced of the 18 targets at Altenar. We call this the Discovery Zone. And as you can see on the bottom of the page, of the 500,000 ounces that we've outlined, about 60% of that sits in the Discovery Zone deposit. Last year, we went into the heart of this deposit to see if we could better understand the high-grade core, and we drilled along the edges of the existing resource blocks, and that gave us some very good results, including that which you see on the left-hand side here: 7 meters of 46 grams per ton, within 23 meters of 17 grams, beginning at 70 meters depth. You can see in the center of this image the red bodies denote that high-grade core. We now believe there's a strong potential for that to be connected between the two in what we call the gap zone, and that'll be a high priority area for us to get in and explore as we move into exploration here later in 2021. So where are we today? We're sitting at just over 1 million ounces, about 1.1 million ounces of combined resource. We've been steadily increasing this over the last several years. We believe we will have a very successful 2021 and into 2022 in expanding this further. This is a combination of both Altenar and Bayan Khundii. The majority of it, as you can see here in the dark blue, is measured and indicated, with a grade that is approaching 2.5 grams per ton. So very high relative to open pit grades globally. So where are we going? We're planning an extensive exploration program for 2021, targeting 2 million ounces, as I'd said earlier. Dark Horse is now the front runner in that exploration. A very exciting new discovery. We can't wait to get out there and begin more fulsome drilling. This scout drilling program will help us understand that more fully. But that major drill program will commence here in the coming weeks and continue for a long period of time, I suspect, if what we see is proven up. We also have the Bayan Khundii resource update, which will be coming out in H1 of this year. Altenar we'll get to as we move through 2021. And there's a whole host of other prospects, both on the 2 key licenses, but also on the newly acquired Ulan license, which we'll get to this year as well. So multiple opportunities for growth. What we've done here on the right-hand side in this graph is to look at how could that 2 million ounces of resource translate into expanded reserves and production as we move forward in this district. So first off, you have the dark blue, which is the Bayan Khundii reserves, our existing reserves at 3.7 grams per ton. The brown and the blue columns is the areas of growth that we believe we have in front of us in the vicinity of the Bayan Khundii pit. We've hit some very high grades at surface, at Midfield Southeast and Striker South parts of the Bayan Khundii deposit, which we believe we can use to spike up that grade with the existing plant to get us up into that 75 to 80,000 ounce per year range, to keep that consistent from the planned Bayan Khundii facility. On the back end of this, you have some lighter blue colors, and that's the additional resource expansion opportunity we believe we have around the pit, particularly in the Striker West area that we are now working with Tetra Tech on. And then the phased expansion, which we see 3 years after commencement of production at Bayan Khundii, we expect to be drawing ore from Altenar, Dark Horse, Altenaro, and I feel confident with what we see today that those resources exist. I think there'll be significantly more resources than that as we continue our exploration. So feel that there's high probability in the resource availability to support this targeted production growth. People and partners. We've been working in Bayan Khundii province for 15 years. We first went in there with the Zun Mod project in 2005 and have been very good local partners with government throughout that period. The mine that we're projected to build in the coming years is forecast to contribute over $60 million in taxes and royalties to the state. We expect to generate over 300 direct jobs at the mine site. And we've also taken an approach where we want to seek other ways to share benefits with the local community and with the with Mongolians generally. And that led us to become the first company to cross-list on the Mongolian Stock Exchange, where we now have 6,000 Mongolian shareholders. But let me go through some of the key areas that we view as our social responsibility. We have a plant that's designed to recycle 85% of the water. We're also restoring remote rural water wells. Whenever we're working in any of these areas where we use local water sources for drilling or for dust control, we go in and we refurbish those remote wells. So we've done that in numerous locations throughout our project area. We're the first mining company to design an integrated waste facility looking at dry stack tails to reduce the environmental footprint. We're the first mining company in Mongolia to use solar generation as part of our power solution. We're consistently looking at ways we can employ more local residents, and we've supported 80 students from local schools with annual merit-based scholarships to attend university. We've also worked closely with UBC on case studies, looking at ways we can create value for the local communities. Safety, environmental management, and communities is a major part of our DNA. We look forward to creating benefits and sharing those benefits with that local community. Now let's shift into the capital structure. We have a share price in the range of 43 cents today. We have a market cap of approximately $90 million, which is roughly 2 times the proposed cash flow looking at current gold price. And we have $9 million US in cash. We have 268 million shares outstanding, and those shares are controlled by a very strong group of shareholders. To begin with the retail side, and to some extent the family office side, we're based in Atlantic, Canada. We have generated a very loyal, large shareholder base in this part of the country who are in tune with our long-term plans for value creation. We have Eric Sprott, who invested in the company earlier last year, $15 million. And we also have the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. The European Bank is Mongolia's largest investor, largest foreign investor at about $2.7 billion, most of that in the mining industry. And they're a bank that obviously has commercial interest, but they also have a very strong social interest. And we believe they're the ideal partner to have in Mongolia to move us through the construction stage into production and to support us through that entire process. Management and directors are well aligned with shareholders' interests, having an 8% interest in the company. And we also have 5% of our shareholder base controlled by Mongolian investors. We believe we're well poised for a re-rating. When you look at our price to net asset value here at 0.4 times compared to our peers, significant potential to see that grow in value. And you can see that reflected in these examples at the bottom of the page. So we've looked at Rox Gold in Africa, Step Gold in Mongolia, and Pure Gold in North America, and looked at the re-rating that they experienced as they moved from a single asset company pre-production to production. And typically you're seeing a 2 to 3 times increase in value as you move through that process. When you look at the Lassonde curve here, you can see where we're positioned currently, just coming out of that trough as we move through increasing confidence and de-risking through construction readiness and financing. But also, we have this exceptional exploration upside. You know, I truly believe when we look at the eventual value of this company, we'll see a great increase in value through re-rating. But the exploration upside from my 33 years in this business as a geologist is exceptional. I haven't seen this type of opportunity for multi-million ounce discovery anywhere else I've worked in an unexplored district. We have an exceptional board of directors, pioneers in Mongolia's modern mining industry. Dr. Anna Bielik on the right was Canada's first ambassador to Mongolia, well connected and versed in the political and business workings of the region. Cameron McRae, to her left, was the mining executive who built the first phase of Oyu Tolgoi, led that $6 billion build. Hedley Widdop is a geologist and investment manager out of Australia, who's affiliated with a company that is one of our main institutional investors. Leighton Croft, 25 years of leadership experience in Mongolia, 16 years of global mining experience, and worked in Mongolia in government affairs with fluent Mongolian, leading that government discussion with Ivanhoe, Rio Tinto, Peabody, and is now chairman of Pan Continental Resources. David Mosier, a well-known mining executive, former president and CEO of High River Gold Mines, worked in the region just north of Mongolia in developing and operating gold mines in that region. John Byrne, a very experienced finance professional, a large investor in the company, and Ken McDonald, our former CFO, now added to the board of directors with 34 years experience in the mining industry. Moving on to the executive management team, I'm very proud of the group that we've assembled here. We cross all disciplines needed to take this to fruition in the mining industry. On the top of the page, you'll see Bayarma Bagabunde, who's our Chief Administrative Officer. I would suggest the most experienced CAO in the Mongolian mining industry. Bob Jenkins is our CFO, again, 15 years of experience in corporate finance, operations, and project management. Bilguin Ankbayar is our Vice President of Business Development, experience both in the Canadian markets, having worked in Bay Street and bringing that to Mongolia, where he works on our corporate development, but also on our government affairs side. Pleased to have Julian Lawrence working with us, a mining engineer, project manager who has 20 years experience in mine development and operations across Asia and including Mongolia. Erdene in the center of this slide, perhaps the most respected exploration industry geologist, a big part of the reason we've made the discoveries we've had. John Lyons, Vice President, Regulatory Affairs and Strategy, an executive with over 15 years experience in Mongolia in the areas of sustainable development, community relations, corporate responsibility. Jeff Jardine and Mike Gillis on the bottom of the page provide great experience from both the mining engineering and the geological exploration side. So a great team, well positioned to move this project to fruition. So let me wrap things up here. We have a two-pronged strategy, relatively simple. We're looking at the development of a very straightforward, high-grade, high-return open-pit gold mine, targeting first gold in 2022, and built on the backs of a strong team with good financial support and social license. We're driving value by leveraging our first mover advantage with multiple discoveries to unlock the district scale potential through targeted and aggressive exploration in one of the world's great underexplored gold belts. Upcoming catalysts, we'll get this scout drilling results into the market here as we move into late March. That'll help us formulate our plans and understand the scale of what we're dealing with at Dark Horse. But there will be a major drill program commencing at Dark Horse as we move towards the end of March into early April. We have yet to define exactly the scale of this, and it'll be better known, as I mentioned, once we see these results. But I expect drilling to be continuing through much of 2021 at Dark Horse. We also, during the first half of this year, will receive that update on resources at Bayan Khundii and begin to develop that into our mine plan. We are working through finalizing the debt financing and permitting as we move to mid-2021, and that leads us to the construction decision that we'll see as we move into the latter half of this year. And once that decision is made, we have an 18-month period to get to first gold. So it really comes down to first gold late 2022 and just continuing to push forward to find the treasures, unlock the treasures that exist in this very exciting new district. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the PDAC event in 2021.